Hello, everyone, and welcome to BadgerBeat.com. Rob Hernandez standing alongside Jason Galloway here on Day 2 of Big Ten Media Days in Chicago. Jason, the beat writer from the Wisconsin State Journal on Badger football. And Jason, a lot to digest here over 2 days. And today it's our 5 things we learned about the Big Ten. And we learned a lot about a lot of different things, maybe too much information at times. But let's start with number 1 on our list. We had Harbaugh Mania here today. And, in fact, it might have been on this very podium where Jim Harbaugh was holding court, and they were lined up 8 and 9 deep. This guy has just electrified the conference.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing that many people are gathered around a guy who wasn't really giving great quotes. But, I mean,
saying a lot, not a lot was coming out. That's right.
He can go on some tangents sometimes, we learned. But, yeah, it was crazy. I mean, he even got more attention than Urban Meyer did. Yesterday,
yeah.
And he's won 3 national titles, including last year with Ohio State, and so it was interesting to see. I mean, we kind of expected it. We kind of expected Harbaugh to be the story today, but it was just kind of crazy to see exactly how many people were gathered around him at all times, and how much people kind of hung on everything he was saying.
Well, I thought it was interesting for people who haven't been to a Big Ten Media Day. He started out today with a podium session in the big room, and where he was peppered with questions for about 15 minutes. And as you said, didn't really answer the questions, but had a lot of great stories to tell,
yeah.
Kind of Bo Ryan-esque in that respect. And then he came into this room, stood on one of these podiums, and answered questions in a little bit of a different group setting, and then went to a table, and they were circled around the table. And I'm not sure when the honeymoon period is over, but it sure seems to me like people appreciate the fact that he's in the league. Can he really elevate the profile of this conference, do you think?
Oh, I think he can. I think it all comes down to whether Michigan starts winning again or
right.
not. If they continue to stay around a 500 team, then that's going to wear off. But like Harbaugh's shown with the 49ers and at Stanford, if he's successful at Michigan as he was, at those places, then Michigan will rise back to the top. They'll be at the top of, the Big Ten Conference again. And, anytime Michigan is good, it's going to, elevate the interest level in the Big Ten, but especially when you got a guy like Harbaugh, leading the way, I think he can definitely do a lot to help the conference.
Well, we'll see. It sure was something to behold here today. Jim Harbaugh just setting the Big Ten Media Days on its ear. Number 2 on our list of things that we learned, Mike Riley is a flip phone guy. And I guess this is kind of playing off a comment that Corey Clement had yesterday when he talked about the 2012 the Big Ten Championship game that the Badgers won handily, and comparing the Badgers to an iPhone and Nebraska to a flip phone, and that's why he came and he chose to be a Badger. The Cornhuskers responded today. I was a little bit interested in the fact that they really took that comment in stride. I don't think it's going to be quite the bulletin board material that it could be. And when Mike Riley said he was a flip phone guy, I kind of believed he was a flip phone guy.
Yeah, he does seem like a flip phone guy to me, but. Yeah, I mean, a lot of the fans on Twitter got really upset with Clement's comments yesterday. Clement had to come out and kind of apologize for it. But,
sure.
And, of course, Mike Riley comes out and says he expects some of his players to use that as bulletin board material. But, it was just more of a fun thing
right.
today instead of a bulletin board material type of thing. I think,
Well, yeah, and what does that say about the rivalry? I mean, you guys are writing about it. The relationship between Paul Chryst and Mike Riley is very tight, and I think it says that this isn't going to be there's not going to be a lot of hatred in this rivalry. It's going to be one of 2 programs that I think will be competitors at least in this division. But I don't think there's going to be much venom in this rivalry.
I don't think so either. I think to call this a rivalry right now it's not really that big of a rivalry. They're trying to push it as a rivalry. They came up with what is it called? I think it's called the Freedom Trophy.
That's right.
Last
I lose track of all the Badgers trophies, folks, to be honest with you.
Yeah, they came up with the Freedom Trophy, tried to push it. But until we get some really great games between the teams, and until,
right.
As long as, Mike Riley and Paul Chryst, who are great friends and nice guys anyway, are at the head, leading the programs.
Right.
Like you said, I doubt there's going to be any venom or anything like that. And Yeah, I don't see this turning into just a huge rivalry anytime soon.
Nobody's going to be guarding goalposts in this rivalry. Number 3, Craig Evans and R.J. Shelton at Michigan State, both players from the area, Madison area, and both very much on the minds of Spartans coach Mark D'Antonio this week for different reasons. Craig Evans came out with he didn't participate in spring ball and is kind of behind the curve, and R.J. Shelton very much in the mix, kind of polar opposites for a couple of former Madison area standouts.
Yeah, Craig Evans, missed spring due to an internal matter. We're not really sure what that, what that is, and he's listed as number 3 on the depth chart right now. So he's kind of falling behind a guy that came in as a really highly recruited guy, and D'Antonio said this is the time for Craig to show that he turn the potential into something on the field.
Right.
It's time for that to happen. He came out and said that. On the other hand, R.J. Shelton, he called him, I think D'Antonio called him one of the most dynamic players on his football team. So that's very high praise there. And he mentioned they could even play him at running back if they needed to. He's that kind of athlete. So, like you said, 2 very different reasons for their names to come up, but 2 local guys getting some pub. And
kind of ironic because Shelton, a running back in high school at Beaver Dam, and was switched to wide receiver, but has proven that he is athletically capable of competing in this conference and for one of the better teams in the Eastern Division. So we'll see exactly how high a ceiling R.J. Shelton has and whether Craig Evans gets on the field for the Spartans. Number 4 on our list of 5 things that we learned about the Big Ten Conference. Back to the Mania, Ohio State Mania, and it's nice to have a national championship in the conference because a year ago at this time, people were wondering if the Badgers could even be in the college football playoff, or if the Big Ten could even be in the college football playoff. And lo and behold, not only are they in it, but they win it. And I think a lot of people are pounding their chests with pride here on Big Ten Media Days because of that.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, anytime your conference wins a national title, it's obviously going to raise the confidence level of everybody that your conference is up there among the best. Especially just the whole bowl season in general.
Mm-hmm.
For the Big Ten to be an underdog in every game, and then for them to come out and win as many as they did was so big. And Ohio State yesterday came in here, and it just seems like they kind of have a confidence about them, and everybody kind of seems to have a lot more confidence in where the Big Ten is heading. Especially with Jim Harbaugh, who we talked about earlier, kind of adds to that. People expect Michigan to raise their level of play, and I think the Big Ten's kind of on the upswing right now.
And finally, in our list of 5 things that we learned about the Big Ten Conference, we learned something, a new development from Commissioner Jim Delaney today, that the days of the powder puff, cupcake, non-conference games may be a thing of the past. We knew that the former Division I AA schools would be working their way off conference schedules, but we learned today that the Big Ten will require Power 5 teams to be on the non-conference schedule. Jason, why don't you explain what that means and whether it'll mean any significant changes, especially for the Badger schedule?
Yeah, so we already knew that eventually the Big Ten was going to force out FCS opponents off the schedule entirely, and they're going to the 9-game conference schedule next year, and Delaney also wants by next year to require teams to, in one of their 3 non-conference games, one of those needs to be a Power 5 opponent. It's just a good strategy. I think it's kind of progressive thinking from the conference to let's go to 9 games in the conference. Let's play at least one really good opponent outside of the conference. Get rid of FCS and just show the College Football Playoff Committee that that the conference is dedicated to a good strength of schedule. And I think that's really important when when those guys are sitting down and deciding between one team and another team. They're really splitting hairs a lot of the time, and if the Big Ten can show that, hey, all of our teams are playing as tough a schedule as we can, I think that goes a long way.
And, of course, the Badgers meet that requirement with Alabama this season, LSU next season, and the mystery is in 2017 there's still one team not on the schedule, on the non-conference schedule, so maybe a little build-up for Badger fans. Who might that be? Based on what Jim Delaney's saying, it almost has to be a Power 5 team, but that's how we're reading it.
Yeah, it's interesting because the Badgers already have their three non-conference
Right.
games set for 17, and this is the same for a lot of teams. In the next few years.
That's right. Yep.
So I mean, people normally schedule these games far in advance if
Yep.
they already have no slots available. Do they have to break contracts?
Right.
Is getting this implemented by 16 like Delaney wants really a realistic expectation? I'm not really sure, but they'll eventually go to this system, whether it's next year, whether it's in
2020,
2020, like
yeah.
at least once they get through all the contracted games.
Right.
Or it will be interesting to see though if any contracts are broken to try to meet these demands.
Well, there'll be a lot of buzz down the road over the landscape in the Big Ten Conference if we can get some great matchups on the non-conference schedule there. There was quite a bit of buzz this week here in Chicago for Big Ten Media Days as the conference's 14 coaches and and players from those teams got together to kind of preview the season, and by all accounts, it's going to be an exciting fall here in the Big Ten Conference. Those are the 5 things that we learned about the Big Ten Conference. For Jason Galloway, I'm Rob Hernandez. Thanks for watching Badger Beat.